When I started my fitness journey, I didn't actually understand the concept of training to look more like a Greek god or training for aesthetics. And I would just try and train like a bodybuilder. I would try and build out a proportionate physique that actually wasn't that aesthetic and didn't look that nice. So in this video, I'm going to go over exactly what you can do to tailor your physique to try and make it look more aesthetic and more like a Greek god. So the most important step to building an aesthetic physique is that you must stay lean year round. This is super important because what happens is when you're lean and when you don't have much body fat, it actually really brings out your muscles a lot more and you start to look a lot more aesthetic. So this is absolutely key if you want to have like 3D shoulders, you want your chest to really pop and your muscles to actually really stand out. If you're not lean, it's just going to overshadow this and it's going to look, you're not going to look anywhere near as big as you should look. And it's also just not going to be that aesthetic and you're not going to be that proud of your physique, just because a lot of the muscles that you're building is actually just overshadowed by a layer of fat. So think about movie stars. They actually hardly ever weigh as much as people think they weigh. And the reason why this is because literally they're just down below 10% body fat. So when you get to below 10% body fat, this is where your muscles really start to pop out. This is where you can kind of see the veins, the striations in your muscles, and this is where your physique really starts to take off. You start to build like 3D shoulders, where you can see the different muscle groups. It's where your upper chest really starts to pop out, and it's when your physique really starts to look the best, is when you're down below 10% body fat and you're really lean. So ways you can do this are just track your calories, find out where your maintenance levels are. If your maintenance levels are sitting at about 3,000 calories per day, then you want to get lean, just taper this down a little bit and aim for 2,800 or 2,900 calories per day. If you can do this, you're literally just going to make sure that you stay lean and you keep on losing fat consistently. So once you're lean, once you're in this state, you'll notice that once you get rid of this layer of fat, your muscles are really going to start to pop. This is where your abs are going to show, your chest is really going to stand out, your shoulders are going to start to pop, and it's going to massively improve your physique. So the next step is try and tailor your workouts around the muscle groups which are the most aesthetic muscles. So these are your shoulders, your upper chest, your traps, and also your abs. These are the muscles which you should prioritize in each and every workout because these are the muscles which really make your upper body stand out and make you look really, really aesthetic. So if you think about where you look at someone when you generally look at them when they walk into a room, you're generally looking from this level above. So you're looking at their upper chest, you're looking at their shoulders and their traps, and these are the muscle groups that really pop out and really give you that aesthetic look. So if you're someone who's training your physique and you want to look like a Greek god as opposed to a bodybuilder, you're not trying to build a proportionate physique where your muscles are the same all around and you've got massive tree trunk legs and massive thighs. You actually want to start to prioritize and focus on these upper body muscles which really bring out that V-taper and which really bring out that aesthetic look. So have a look at some of the people online, some fitness influencers, or just search up images of Greek god. A lot of the time, when you see these images, their shoulders and their upper chest just really pop out and are disproportionately larger than the rest of their physique. So this is a big mistake people make when they start training. You train too much to be proportionate, you don't want your legs to lag behind, or you just want every muscle group to be the exact same. Whereas if you want your physique to actually pop out and you want to really stand out, you actually really need to prioritize these upper body muscles, which are really going to bring out and accentuate that Greek god look in your physique. So ways you can do this are just put these muscle groups at the start of each workout. And also you could add on a little bit more to these muscle groups. You can maybe do 3 to 4 sets per workout. But what you need to think about is when you do this, you need to actually take out volume away from the other muscle groups. This is because if you just keep on adding more and more and just add on onto these muscle groups when you work out, what's going to happen is you're just going to build up too much fatigue and that's going to carry on to your next workout and they're going to be less productive. You're not going to hit PRs, you're going to be less strong, and therefore you're going to build less muscle. So you need to actually kind of restructure this. It's sort of like a jigsaw puzzle, but you need to put these muscle groups at the start of your workout and then just take some volume away from the other muscle groups and just put a little bit more volume into these muscle groups without going overboard with the amount of sets and exercises you're doing per workout. So this should stay the same, however, just take away from some muscle groups and put it into your upper chest and your shoulders, your lats, and this is where you'll really start to see these muscles pop out. So this is something which a lot of people avoid when they start training. like I said before, they just want to build a physique which is completely proportionate, where you've got like a blocky waist, you've got large shoulders, but you've also got large legs, and you've got like a huge upper back muscles. These kind of things just really take away from these aesthetic muscles. So you really want to make sure that these muscles really pop and really stand out. So 2 exercises which I see a lot of people doing, which just have very low ROI and aren't actually worth it, are deadlifts and squats. These 2 exercises are things which really build up your they really build up your thighs. They also really build up your lower back and just kind of give you like a blocky waist, especially with deadlifts, and just building up like muscles which aren't that aesthetic, like your lower back muscles or your leg muscles. So these are 2 exercises which are just low return on investment. There's so much better ways to actually build up your legs aesthetically, where you can do exercises which target the muscles closer to your knee and your legs. So these are things like Bulgarian split squats or Romanian deadlifts, or actually hip thrusts. So just exercises which actually really bring out that aesthetic look in your legs, as opposed to just building like bulky tree trunk legs. And one issue I found is that people just train their legs a bit too much. You don't actually need to train your legs that much, because what happens is when you build up massive legs, they just start to overshadow your upper body physique, and it just doesn't look as nice. So the next point to build up an aesthetic physique is you need to actually understand that low volume is essential. So low volume training is what's really going to lead to you getting stronger, and the stronger you are, the more muscle you're going to put on. So you should think of strength as your North Star. This is something which you should be aiming towards constantly. So the way to actually build up your strength is if you build up So another point to take away from this is that low volume is actually key, and it's essential to build up that Greek god physique. So if you think about people who just spend too much time training high volume and they're chasing a pump constantly, what happens is you will get the swelling in your muscles, which does create that pump. However, this doesn't actually convert and translate into muscle growth, and it especially doesn't translate into long-term hypertrophy and muscle growth. What happens is you're actually building up a physique that's kind of built on a house of cards. If you take 1 week off and you go on holiday and you've built up this physique from chasing that pump and high volume, you're going to actually start to look really flat, and a lot of the muscle you build is just going to dissipate and go away. Whereas if you train low volume, what you're doing is you're actually building up your physique and your muscles into more dense, more like harder, denser state, which is actually a lot more long lasting and actually really kind of gives you that aesthetic Greek god look. So if you want to look like a Greek god as opposed to a bodybuilder, you want to build up that aesthetic look, you need to actually start tapering down your volume and just going low volume with your sets. So for example, this could be a first set of about 4 to 6 reps, then after this go 6 to 8, and then after this 8 to 10. So this is called reverse pyramid training. This is where you're the most fresh, you're actually training on the higher level of weight, and then you're kind of taking this back a little bit and going a little bit higher after this. And the idea here is that when you're less fatigued, when you've got the most strength, you're going for the highest amount of weight, which is going to give you the highest amount of mechanical tension. This is what's really essential and key for hypertrophy, is this is what's really going to build up that aesthetic physique. So what you can do as well is don't overtrain, don't go too many sets per workout. You should only be going between 12 to 15 total across all exercises, because if you overtrain, you're going to get too tired. You're not going to be able to progressively overload in the next workout you go to, because you're bringing over this fatigue, you're less strong, and you're not going to be able to build on as much muscle. So you should be thinking of strength equals hypertrophy. As long as you're continually building strength, then you're going to be building muscle. And the way that you do this is by having low reps, high weight exercises, which are really going to accentuate that Greek god look. So lastly, the 3-day split which I use, which has really helped me to build up a physique where your upper body really starts to pop out, is I do upper body on Monday, then legs on Wednesday, and then upper body again on Friday. So the reason why this is so effective is because you're only training your legs once a week, so your upper body starts to stand out more. And you can still build a lot of muscle in your legs if you just train once a week. I've found that every time I'm going back into the gym, I'm progressively overloading and I'm still putting on more muscle and adding more weight. But if you actually train your upper body twice a week, this is where you really start to get that wide shoulders which kind of pop out. Your chest starts to look a lot nicer as well because you're training it 2 times a week. And this is exactly the essential process that you need to go through to build on as much muscle as possible in a shorter time frame. It's by training it twice a week. So if you train your upper body 2 times a week and you're doing 4 to 5 upper body exercises per session, this is going to lead to you really bringing out your upper body, and you're going to start to pop out and just look more like a Greek god. You're just going to look a lot more aesthetic, and you're not going to be like a proportionate bodybuilder where you're trying to make everything look essential and look the same all around. You're really bringing out these muscles that really make your physique pop and stand out.